Wait, you're actually the CEO? My goodness, I mistook you for my driver. The words escaped Maya Williams' lips before she could filter them. Her heart raced so violently that the thumping seemed to vibrate through the grand marble entryway. Just a few moments ago, this individual had been steering a black SUV, displaying a gentle and observant demeanor. Now, dressed in a flawless navy-tailored suit, he bore no resemblance to the man who had kindly offered a blanket to her little girl. Maya's voice trembled as the weight of the situation dawned on her. The person she confused with an Uber driver was none other than James Whitmore, the presiding CEO of Whitmore Global, the very firm where she hoped to secure employment. 30 minutes prior, she had been waiting outside a rundown motel in South Atlanta, carrying a simple tote bag while her 5-year-old Aria held tightly to her hand under a thick morning fog. The morning chill was piercing. When her phone alerted her that her ride had arrived, she felt a wave of relief. Then, a sophisticated SUV pulled up, a vehicle far too elegant for that neighborhood. Without a second thought, she climbed in. "Hello, I'm so sorry for the delay," she panted, out of breath. "Heading to 17th and Northside Drive, please." The man gave her a brief, unreadable glance and simply replied, "Certainly." As they drove, Aria occupied herself by tapping her boots together. Maya handed her daughter a small snack from her purse. The driver remained mostly silent, only speaking once to offer a neatly folded blanket for the child. "She looks a bit cold," he remarked softly. Maya, surprised by the gesture, replied, "That is incredibly thoughtful of you." The remainder of the trip was soundtracked only by the hum of the tires against the damp road. When they finally reached the towering glass skyscraper, Maya felt overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the corporate world. She caught a glimpse of herself in the dark window, a weathered jacket, a second-hand skirt, and hair pinned up in a rush. "We can do this," she whispered to Aria. "We just need one opening." She was unaware that the man stayed behind for a moment, watching as she led her daughter into the building. The Whitmore Global foyer was a masterpiece of silver and light, with ceilings that reached for the sky. Every corner of the place radiated wealth and perfection. Every employee looked impeccably dressed. Maya walked cautiously across the polished floors, keeping Aria close. She noticed the judgmental and curious stares from those passing by. The receptionist, a tall and polished woman, gave a professional but cold greeting. "Good morning. How can I assist you?" "I have an interview scheduled," Maya said, her voice low. "Administrative assistant role. I'm Maya Williams." The woman's eyes drifted down to Aria. "And the youngster?" "She's my daughter. I couldn't secure childcare at the last minute." The receptionist's thin smile faded instantly. "I'm afraid children aren't allowed past the reception area. It's a firm policy." "I understand, but it's only for 15 minutes, Maya pleaded. "She will stay perfectly still, I promise." A nearby man in a gray suit let out a quiet, mocking laugh. "How unprofessional," he whispered loud enough to be heard. Another staff member nearby shook her head in disapproval, muttering about the quality of applicants these days. Maya felt the heat rise in her cheeks. "Please," she tried once more. "I just want the opportunity to show my skills. I'm a fast typist and very detail-oriented." "Madam," the receptionist interrupted, her voice sharp. "This is a global corporation, not a social service agency. You should return when you are better prepared." Something inside Maya collapsed. Reschedule? She had spent her last bit of money just to get here. There wouldn't be a second chance. She felt Aria lean against her for comfort. "Please," Maya whispered, her eyes welling up. "If I could just speak with someone. I'll wait anywhere, even the hallway. Please. Please don't make us leave." Her legs felt like they were about to collapse. She had to steady herself by grabbing the edge of the high-end reception counter. In that moment of weakness, her bag slipped, sending her belongings across the polished floor. Her resumes and a colorful drawing Aria had made scattered everywhere, symbolizing the fragments of her pride. The man in the gray suit didn't hide his mockery, letting out a faint, condescending laugh. "Clean up your mess, ma'am," he muttered with a smirk. With shaking hands, Maya dropped to her knees to gather her life's work. Her throat tightened with emotion. She ignored the small crowd that had gathered, their judgmental whispers masked by fake smiles. A security officer walked over, his tone unwavering. "Miss, I need to escort you out of the building." Tears began to well up in her eyes. "Please, I'm just here for my scheduled interview." He paused for a split second, but then shook his head. "I have to follow protocol." As Maya tried to stand, one of her documents fell again, drifting onto the cold marble. She saw her own reflection, exhausted, broken, and shamed. As she reached for the paper, she felt Arya's small hand on her shoulder, the only thing keeping her grounded. Suddenly, a commanding voice silenced the entire room. "I'll permit it." The lobby went deathly quiet. Standing near the security checkpoint was a man in the Navy suit, the same man who had been her driver. His presence shifted the atmosphere instantly. Staff members stood taller, and the receptionist's attitude transformed into one of extreme deference. "Mr. Whitmore," the receptionist chirped, her voice now dripping with sweetness. "We weren't aware." He raised a hand to silence her. "That's quite enough." He looked at Maya, his expression softening. "It is Miss Williams, correct?" She struggled to find her voice. "Yes, sir," she managed to whisper. "Let's ensure your interview goes ahead as intended." He shot a brief, meaningful look at the bystanders. "And perhaps we can show a little more compassion in this office." Silence followed his words, broken only by the hum of the building. James walked toward her and lowered his voice. "You dropped this," he said, handing her the resume. "And remember, you never have to beg for the right to be recognized." Maya was momentarily breathless. He gestured toward the corridor. "Follow me, Miss Williams." As she walked behind him toward the elevator bank, holding Arya's hand, Maya's world felt upside down. The man who had been a quiet observer in the SUV was now moving with the power of a titan. The same eyes she had seen in the rearview mirror now held a sense of deep understanding and respect. Inside the polished elevator, the silence was heavy. Maya looked at their reflection. A struggling mother, a child with her toy, and a man who commanded empires. "You boarded a stranger's vehicle today," he remarked, his tone neutral. Maya blinked, caught off guard. He caught her eye in the mirror's reflection. Sometimes, taking the wrong path leads you exactly where you need to be. The elevator dinged, and the doors parted. Maya stepped out, her heart racing, not with anxiety, but with a flicker of something new. It was a small spark of hope. She didn't realize it yet, but this day, despite the humiliation and the struggle, was a turning point of her life. If Maya's journey resonates with you, show your support and let us know where you're joining us from. You never know who might be walking a similar path. The doors opened to a hallway that looked untouched by the outside world, muted grays and rich with accents. A soft hum of corporate life filled the air. Maya paused at the entrance, her grip on Arya's hand tightening. The memory of the laughter and the cold marble floor still stung. James Whitmore led the way, nodding to an assistant who was visibly stunned to see him. He slowed his pace, looked back at Maya and Arya, and gestured toward a doorway. "The meeting room is just down this way. Don't fret, I'll ensure you are settled in before I depart." Maya gazed at him, her voice momentarily lost. "Mr. Whitmore, I just wanted to express my deepest gratitude for what you did earlier. You really didn't have to." He raised a hand in a gentle gesture of dismissal. "No thanks are necessary, Miss Williams. You've earned your place here, whether the others recognize it yet or not." His words resonated deeply within her, like a long dormant string being plucked. They reached the end of the corridor, where a heavy glass door stood open. Inside was a high-tech boardroom, a long, mirror-like table surrounded by high-backed chairs occupied by 3 executives in dark professional attire. A stern woman in her 50s, wearing silver-rimmed glasses, stood up as they entered. "Miss Williams," she said with a cold, flat tone, "we weren't expecting a child to be part of the interview." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She managed a forced smile and leaned down to her daughter. "Honey, can you sit on this bench and draw in your book just like we practiced?" She handed Arya a pink sketchbook and some crayons. Arya nodded, her little legs swinging from the bench, unable to reach the floor. "She'll be very quiet," Maya assured them, straightening her clothes. "I'm ready to begin whenever you are." The HR lead pointed to a chair opposite the panel. James stayed near the back, his presence filling the room with a quiet, undeniable authority that shifted the energy of the meeting. "Let's start," the woman said, opening a file. "Your history shows several short-term roles. What's the reason for this?" Maya clasped her hands, maintaining her composure. "Yes, ma'am. I've balanced various part-time jobs, reception, service industry, and temporary roles. Some ended due to childcare or transit issues, but I have a perfect attendance record. I have never walked away from my duties." "And what about your administrative background?" a second interviewer asked, a man with a focused, furrowed brow. "This role demands top-tier organizational and communication skills." "I spent nearly a year at a local accounting firm," Maya explained. "I managed everything from scheduling and filing to billing and client calls. I'm a fast learner and proficient with digital calendars and spreadsheets." "And why did that role conclude?" the woman pressed. "The firm went out of business," Maya replied softly. A silence followed before the third interviewer, a younger woman with a tablet, finally spoke. "Minimal education, a fragmented work history, and basic skills. Why should we choose you over candidates with more traditional qualifications?" The question felt like a physical blow. Maya swallowed hard, her throat tightening as she looked down, trying to find the strength to defend herself. Before she could speak, a small, clear voice filled the room. "Excuse me," Arya said. All eyes turned to the little girl on the bench. "My mommy makes me breakfast even when she's exhausted. She fixes my hair and teaches me to be brave when things are scary. She says we're going to have a better life if we stay strong and kind. She never gives up, and she never will." A heavy silence fell over the room. Maya's eyes met her daughter's, and a wave of pride and pain washed over her. James Whitmore, watching from the back, looked at Arya. His face remained professional, but there was a flicker of deep recognition in his eyes. He stepped forward. "Miss Williams," he said softly, "how would your past employers describe your dedication?" Maya sat taller, her voice now steady. "They would tell you that I'm the first to arrive, the last to leave. I ask questions to improve, and I never ever quit." The HR manager looked at James, uncertain. He simply nodded, reached for the folder on the table, and closed it. "I believe we've seen enough," he stated calmly. "Miss Williams, welcome to the Whitmore Global Team." Maya was stunned. "Wait, truly." "You're hired," he confirmed with a warm, personal smile. Maya's hand shook with joy as she reached for Arya. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." James gestured toward the door. "I'll have an assistant show you to the onboarding office this afternoon." As Maya walked out, holding Arya's hand, the weight of the morning no longer felt like a burden. She looked back at James one last time. He was watching them with a look that wasn't pity. It was something far more profound. Maya didn't quite understand it yet, but she knew she was no longer invisible. By the time she stepped out of the room into the midday sun, her heart was full of a rare, beautiful thing: hope. In her hand, Maya clutched a folder containing her welcome packet. Building diagrams, employee benefits, and a crisp new identification badge. The bold letters on the card read, "Maya Williams, Administrative Staff." She looked down at Arya, who was skipping joyfully beside her, still holding on to her pink crayon and sketchbook. The young girl's curls danced with every step, her spirit entirely lifted now that the heavy cloud of anxiety had vanished from her mother's face. "I have an official badge now," Maya whispered to herself, almost in disbelief. "I told you that you were a hero, Mommy," Arya said with a wide smile. They rounded a corner into the HR lounge, where a red-haired assistant named Beth greeted them with a clipboard and a formal, somewhat stiff expression. "Sign here to finalize your paperwork," Beth instructed, her voice devoid of warmth. "Your specific desk location will be assigned by the end of the business day." Maya signed the documents quickly, trying to ignore Beth's cold demeanor. The encouragement she had received from James Whitmore still fueled her confidence, though the icy environment of the HR office threatened to dampen it. Beth paused, looking pointedly at Arya. "In the future, please remember that children are not allowed in the workplace without explicit permission from management." Maya nodded. "I completely understand. Today was an emergency situation." Beth offered no reply, merely reclaimed the clipboard and pointed toward a side corridor. You'll be shadowing a senior admin for the remainder of the shift. Someone will be with you shortly. When they were alone in the lounge, Maya pulled Arya onto her lap and finally let out a long, shaky breath. She gently stroked her daughter's hair. You were wonderful today, sweetie, she whispered. Arya beamed back. You too, Mommy. A few minutes later, a young woman with elegant braids and a sunny yellow top walked in. Hi, I'm Tamika. I'll be your guide for today's onboarding. Her voice was friendly and carried a warm, southern lilt. Maya stood up, feeling her heart lighten. I'm Maya, and this is Arya. It's a pleasure. I heard you made quite an impression this morning, Tamika said with playful wink. Don't sweat it. People will have something else to whisper about by tomorrow's lunch break. Maya laughed, feeling a wave of relief. Is it always this intense here? Tamika shrugged. Every floor has its own vibe. HR can be a bit rigid, but the marketing department is where the life is. Let me show you around. They walked through a labyrinth of modern offices and glass-walled rooms. On the upper floors, the atmosphere was much more human. Maya saw a colleague sharing a laugh and noticed a sticky note on a screen that said, Mondays require caffeine and small miracles. Tamika stopped at a vacant desk bathed in sunlight. This is your spot, she announced. It's near the printer, but the view is great. And here, a little welcome gift. She handed Maya a lemon bar wrapped in a napkin. Maya was moved. I haven't even had breakfast yet. Tamika grinned. Rule number 1. If the food is free, take 2. The two shared a laugh, and for the first time, Maya felt like she belonged. Throughout the afternoon, Tamika taught her the essentials: scheduling software, internal communications, and office protocols. Arya sat nearby, peacefully drawing unicorns and castles. She's a great kid, Tamika remarked. She's my strength, Maya replied. She was the one who spoke up in the interview. I'm still learning to be that brave. Tamika nodded. She's a light. We could use more of that in this department. By 4 p.m., Maya's mind was full of new information, but her hands were steady. She was actually doing it. As the day ended, Tamika walked her to the elevators. Tomorrow is your first solo day. I'm just down the hall if you get stuck. I mean it, anything you need. As the elevator doors began to close, a hand reached out to stop them. James Whitmore stepped inside. Miss Williams, he said with a polite nod. How was your first day of orientation? It was excellent, sir, Maya replied, surprised to see him. James looked at Arya, who gave him a small wave. Hi again, Mr. Uberman. A ghost of a smile appeared on his face. Hello again, Miss Arya. The elevator moved down in silence for a moment before James spoke again. You carried yourself with incredible dignity this morning. That's a rare quality. Maya looked down. To be honest, I didn't feel very dignified. True character shows when things are at their worst, he said softly. You stood tall after they tried to knock you down. That counts for more than any CV. As they reached the ground floor, he stepped back to let them pass. I'll see you tomorrow, Miss Williams. Welcome to the company. Outside, the evening sun turned the city streets to gold. Maya took a deep, refreshing breath as they headed for the bus. Her body was tired, but her spirit was soaring. The next morning, Maya arrived at the parking lot at 7:44 a.m., 15 minutes early. She straightened her navy blouse and checked her phone. Being early was her way of staying in control, a small promise to herself that she wouldn't let this chance slip away. Arya was left in the care of Miss Lawson, a retired educator living in the same complex, who had agreed to babysit for a few hours each morning. The cost amounted to nearly a quarter of Maya's weekly earnings, but she didn't hesitate. Keeping this career opportunity was her only priority. As she entered the building, the polished stone floors reflected her sneakers. She still hadn't summoned the courage to put on her only pair of high heels again. Carl, the seasoned security guard in his 60s, gave her a friendly nod from behind the desk. Good morning, Miss Williams, he said. She offered a warm smile in return. Morning, Mr. Carl. The elevator ride was a solitary one, accompanied only by the soft whirring of machinery. The moment she stepped onto the third floor, the mood shifted. It was a subtle but sharp change. A sudden silence, a few lingering stares, and then the low hum of gossip just out of her reach. Maya made her way to her workstation, a modest cubicle located right next to the photocopier. Looking out at a plain concrete courtyard through the window, she sat down and started her company laptop. As the screen brightened, a muffled giggle erupted behind her. "That's her," someone hissed. "She actually brought a child to a professional interview," another voice added, dripping with disdain. "Can you even imagine?" A third voice, belonging to a woman with a sharp haircut and an even sharper attitude, chimed in. She must have done more than just talk to get hired. I mean, who gets a job after making a scene on the floor? Maya felt paralyzed. Her fingers stayed frozen over the keys, her face flushed with heat, and the office suddenly felt claustrophobic. Taking a deep breath, she began entering her credentials. She knew that any sign of irritation would only give her critics more ammunition. Across the room, Tamika caught her eye and gave a subtle, supportive nod. Maya acknowledged it with a small movement of her head. By mid-morning, she was deep into processing call logs and organizing meeting schedules. The office followed a fast-paced, repetitive pattern. Email. Copy. Organize. Coffee. Repeat. Yet, the judgmental glances never faded. In the kitchenette near the break area, she caught fragments of a conversation between two junior staff members near the espresso machine. "She's clearly caught the CEO's eye," one remarked. "It's easy to get noticed when you show up with a sob story like that." The other laughed dismissively. Maya acted as if she heard nothing, focusing instead on the way her tea bag swirled in the hot water. When she returned to her desk, a yellow sticky note was attached to her screen. She initially assumed it was a memo from Tamika, but the words made her heart sink. "Watch who you smile at." There was no name, no indication of who left it, just an anonymous warning. She peeled it off and hid it in her desk drawer. Shortly after midday, James Whitmore did a walk through the floor. He moved with a quiet, respectful presence, not like a typical demanding executive. He spoke to people by name and nodded as he passed. When he reached Maya's desk, the surrounding activity seemed to slow down. "Miss Williams." He greeted her warmly, his hands in his pockets. "How are you finding your first full day?" "It's quite busy, sir, but it's going well," she answered, keeping her tone professional and calm. He gave a slight smile. "I like that perspective." Before moving on, he placed a small slip of paper next to her keyboard, a lunch voucher for the building's cafeteria. It wasn't a grand gift, just a thoughtful gesture. As he walked away, the tension behind her grew thick. A whisper came from a few desks over. "Lunch perks already? She's definitely being treated as a favorite." Tamika walked by at that moment, dropping a folder onto Maya's desk while raising her voice for others to hear. Some people work with kindness, while others just spend their time complaining about it. Maya looked up, surprised. Their eyes met, and Tamika gave her a quick wink before moving on. Later that afternoon, while Maya was out of her cubicle, she returned to find two women hovering near her desk. They were pretending to look for supplies, but were clearly eyeing the voucher James had left. "Oh, he's so discreet," one said mockingly. "Maybe he'll bring flowers next time." Maya stepped forward. "Can I help you with something?" They jumped, startled. "No, we were just—" One began, searching for an excuse. "We didn't realize you were back yet." "Here are the forms you were looking for," Maya said firmly, handing them a clipboard. Her hands were steady, even as she felt shaken inside. She sat down, looked at the lunch voucher, and briefly thought about discarding it. Instead, she tucked it safely into her purse. At 5 p.m., Maya logged off and prepared to leave. The journey to the bus stop felt longer today, the way to the office whispers following her like a shadow. Back at home, Aria was waiting with her sketchbook. "I drew a picture for you," she said, showing a page. It depicted Maya, Aria, and James all enjoying ice cream together. "Why do you keep putting him in your drawing, sweetie?" Maya asked softly, kneeling down. "Because he was the only one who helped you." Aria replied simply, "And I think he likes it when you're happy." Maya didn't know what to say. She simply pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. "Mommy has a lot to figure out, Aria," she whispered. Hikoinen kingi kismi bormi, yubring davmatiramis. That night, she turned the lights out early, but the lingering echoes of office gossip continued to haunt her thoughts. The next morning, Maya decided to take a longer path to her workstation. It wasn't a planned move at first, just a quick detour to steer clear of the morning elevator rush. However, as she navigated to the rows of polished desks and high-end office furniture, she couldn't help but notice the sudden pauses in conversations as she passed. Some eyes darted toward her, then quickly away, while others lingered with a sharp, cutting coldness. She had only been a part of Whitmore Global for 2 days, yet the atmosphere already felt heavy, like the tension before a massive storm that refused to break. It wasn't just about the quiet murmurs anymore. It was the calculated silences, the hollow smiles, and the way her table in the break room remained an isolated island. Despite it all, she kept her head held high. This job was a necessity, far more important than gaining their approval. Tamika caught up with her near the administrative wing, a banana in one hand and a folder tucked under her arm. "Morning, Maya," she said with a knowing smirk. "You survived the first wave of the welcome committee, I see." "Barely," Maya replied with a faint laugh that lacked its usual energy. Tamika slowed her pace. "Don't let them get to you. People love to watch a person rise, as long as that person doesn't end up higher than them." "I'm just trying to handle my responsibilities," Maya said. "And you're doing a great job," Tamika replied. "Everything else? That's just background noise." They went their separate ways at the break room, and Maya headed for her cubicle. But as she reached her desk, she paused. Something felt off. Her chair had been moved. Her mouse was on the wrong side of the keyboard. Someone had been tampering with her space. And there, right in the middle of her desk, sat another handwritten note in cursive. "Don't forget the circumstances under which you arrived." There was no signature, no explanation. Her breath hitched. This wasn't just a petty comment. It felt like a direct, personal jab. She sat down slowly, her eyes scanning the room. A few colleagues looked her way briefly before refocusing on their monitors. Across the aisle, the woman in the gray suit who had mocked her on the first day now maintained a perfectly neutral expression. No guilt, no smile, just a cold, calculating look. Maya peeled the note off and folded it neatly, hiding it in the back of her planner. She refused to let them see her fear. Instead, she immersed herself in her tasks. The morning was filled with a steady rhythm of typing and professional correspondence. She handled travel arrangements, updated the meeting schedules, and even spotted a minor error in the second quarter calendar. She corrected it and notified her lead. There was no praise for her diligence, no nod of thanks, but she kept working. At 11:47 a.m., just as the lunch hour approached, a new email appeared in her inbox from the executive office. Subject: Administrative Inventory Review. Body: Mr. Whitmore requests a review of the latest inventory logs. Please bring the files to his office before midday. Her heart gave a nervous flutter. She gathered the perfectly tabbed files she had prepared the night before and headed for the executive floor. The elevator ride felt unusually long. He hadn't spoken to her since their first encounter beyond a simple nod, but his influence was felt in every corner of the office. She gave a soft knock on the door. "Come in," a steady, composed voice answered. James Whitmore was behind his dark, minimalist desk, reviewing data on a screen. He was dressed in a charcoal suit today, sleeves rolled up and, as usual, no tie. He looked up as she entered. "Miss Williams," he noted. "That was remarkably fast." "I had everything prepared," she said, stepping forward to place the folder on the edge of his desk. He didn't speak immediately. He flipped through the first few pages and then looked back up at her. "I was informed you caught a mistake in the Q2 schedule." Maya blinked in surprise. I was just verifying dates. It was a minor thing." "Small details are often what determine the success of a quarter," he replied, closing the file. "Excellent work." Maya felt her face warm. "Thank you, sir." A brief silence followed. Not an awkward one, but one filled with unspoken thoughts. James leaned back slightly, his voice dropping to a softer tone. "How is everything going for you downstairs?" She hesitated for a second. "It's busy." I'm learning something new every hour.